Everyone thinks they know what to do, but it's really what not to do is the key to success. The only way to know what not to do is to try it. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. I became the weatherman in the business. So I'm the weatherman for these people. When they can't communicate, I'm trying to communicate for them.
Okay, here we are. Myles, welcome to the Get Busy studio.
Thank you.
Santa Monica.
Yep.
Cool place.
Awesome place.
I'm here with Myles.
Great studio.
Great studio. Great
out,
studio
right?
sound person.
Yep.
It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Here with Myles Kovacs. Let's just get your name right out there.
Awesome.
You're the founder of Dub Magazine.
I'm one of them. Yeah.
You're a co-founder.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have TIS also, right?
Yep.
TIS Magazine.
Oh, it's actually TIS is a wheel company.
It's a wheel
it's
company.
a lifestyle brand. We do wheels and tires.
Okay.
So automotive accessories.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that because
Okay.
I have so many questions about this. So let's start with Dub Magazine,
Yep.
right? It is a print publication,
Yep.
glossy, beautiful magazine. But let me go back and say this. It's a print publication.
Well, yeah, but we started in 2000. So that's when
2000.
print publications were
Yeah,
popping,
it was
right?
kind of like the heyday
This
of
was
print.
before Instagram, before Facebook, before all of that. So I think they had MySpace at the time.
Yeah,
and that was it.
I come
right?
from the media world. We had a MySpace. I loved MySpace, actually. It was kind of cool. Let's talk a little bit about, so one of the cool things about your entrepreneurial journey, because you're not just, the co-founder of a couple of magazines, you are sort of the godfather of working with influencers and celebrities for brand building, right? Like, you're a brand builder. And you also had this great quote. I watched a video of you, and you were talking about, you are the ambassador for the street. And, wheels are, they're basically shoes for cars,
Yep.
right? So let's talk, first of all, let's talk about Dub Magazine and that extremely finite niche that you have identified with your audience for 24 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, so when we founded the company, there was no magazine that was focusing on like urban automotive lifestyle. So there was Lowrider, which was more Hispanic culture and lowriding. So in order to be in lowrider, you had to have 13-inch wire wheels on your car. And then what I saw was the advertising in lowrider became bigger chrome like Dubs, 20-inch wheels. So when the content and the advertising didn't match, I was like, oh, there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I saw that because I was such a fan of lowriding and going to their shows and stuff. So, I mean, really, if you look at like lowrider, shout outs to the founders of them and things like that, like Alberto Lopez and them, Sonny, they basically mimicked Hot Rod Magazine, Robert Peterson. And so I mimicked Robert Peterson and the guys from Lowrider when we started Dub. So I copied their business model. I studied them. I looked at who their demographics were, psychographics, how they were marketing, who their advertisers were. And I really dissected that and I said, there's a progression happening in the market, which on the street side of it, these big chrome rims are starting to become more and more popular. Well, let's do a magazine for that. And that's where we, called it Dub Magazine.
That's amazing. And who are the readers and enthusiasts of your magazine and your media properties?
So on the magazine, I sold my shares in 2020. So I'm no longer an owner of Dub, but I was, the guy who ran it for 20-something years. It was all the above, right? So, I mean, back in the day, it was kind of like when hip-hop was exploding, the Dub car culture was a subculture of hip-hop. So as hip-hop invaded the world, so did car culture.
Right.
So we were on the kind of the coattails of the hip-hop explosion. So it went from being like this really small niche to just massive all over the world.
Yeah, like a mainstream.
Working with, PepsiCo and Anheuser-Busch and Procter & Gamble and all of these Fortune 50 companies wanted part of car culture. And I was like, holy crap, like this thing is, taking off. And but it was because it was a subculture of hip hop, and hip hop was just basically exploding. Look at, you have Snoop Dogg hosting the Olympics. Like, come on.
I mean, could you believe, like, when he stands by the equestrian horses, like, is there anything better than, like, I mean, he is now he's iconically American pop culture.
He is pop culture,
He
period.
is
period.
Like, and everybody loves him, right? So
He's the
let's.
only guy that's on NBC talking about smoking.
I
You know what I'm saying?
and
Like,
it's okay.
and it's okay.
It's okay.
It's like a
It's
joke.
Snoop
You know?
Dogg.
Yeah.
You know, like what are you?
He's
gonna
like a
do?
cartoon character. Now.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. From the founding of Dub Magazine, selling your shares, the thing I love about your story is that you have done so many different things, and you have worked with so many big stars and big brands. So, walk me through sort of the story arc from Dub Magazine to where you are today.
Well, I mean, it really started before that. Like at age 11, I was, street kid from East Los Angeles. I could barely read. I couldn't read really well, but I had at age 11, I was diagnosed with an eye disease called keratoconus. So I was almost legally blind in my left eye,
Wow.
losing my vision in my right. And I couldn't see, so I was angry, right? And just a lot of stuff going on in the home life and just a lot of just psychological things going on. Like, I want to commit suicide since I was 7 years old. So it's like just going through those things and kind of taking that and saying, okay, look, I'm here for some reason. I didn't know what it was, but I just kept pushing because I was like, and at the time I didn't believe in God, right? I found God later in my life, but it's like I felt like I was there for a reason, and I was just trying to find out that reason. So I think curiosity kept me alive, right? And just really exploring and learning. Then I got addicted to learning, and that's what really, and I'm still addicted to learning. And that's, to me, what an entrepreneur is, right?
Yeah.
It's really about going out there, throwing caution in the wind to a certain extent, and learning,
Right.
making these mistakes. And, I give a lot of advice to people now and coach people, and I tell them, go out there and make those mistakes so you know what not to do.
Right.
Right? Everyone thinks they know what to do, but it's really what not to do is the key to success.
Yeah.
The only way to know what not to do is to try it.
Do you think, like, given your experience from the time you were 7 years old, this is such a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Go for it.
Do you think entrepreneurs, like you to me, embody the absolute spirit of entrepreneurship? Do you think you were born that way, or do you think external forces made you that way?
Well, I mean, I think everyone's fully capable. I think it's the negative things in my life that made me tougher, harder,
Yeah.
smarter, whatever, angrier, better, worse, whatever, helped me. So I think a lot of it too is if you look at a lot of people that have what I call extraordinary drive, they had a lot of trauma in their life. I've had a lot of trauma in my life. So going through that and then being able to kind of overcome it is probably the biggest opportunity for most people. So I call, like, any disability creates extraordinary abilities, like your spidey senses. So my spidey senses are different than other people because of that, right? So since God took my sight, he gave me vision. I'm able to see things differently. I'm able to feel things differently because I've been blind 3 times in my left eye, had 2 cornea transplants, all that stuff. But I still drove. I still rode motocross, which I'm passionate about that. Kept working, traveled the world. Most people would have just basically laid in bed and cried and talked about how they can't do anything because they can't see. I still went on, right? I mean, it was weird when I first got my first set of contact lenses. I didn't even recognize myself or my family. Wow. I was 11 years old, and I looked in the mirror. I was like, holy crap, who's that guy? I didn't recognize anyone. I didn't know what anyone's faces looked like.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was scary.
Yeah.
But it was also like, I just looked at it like, wow, I have all these scratches on my face I never even noticed, and all this other stuff, and my hair looks like crap. I thought my hair looked good, but I couldn't even see my hair because it just looked black and the shape. But that's just a life. But I just chose to sit there and say, okay, let's just do something with it, right? And that's what an entrepreneur is. It's somebody that just goes, and no matter what. I mean, I have a tattoo on my arm right here that my daughter did, and basically it says, fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? And that's been my life.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not afraid to get hurt, all that other stuff. And then growing up around gangs and drugs and all that stuff and the whole culture and lowriding and stuff, it's like I was unique when I was younger. I wasn't afraid. Like, I would go in meetings and there was nobody that can intimidate me because I've had the scariest people around me my whole life.
Yeah.
So I mean, just kind of going through that, it really helped me. It really helped me get that done in business too. But I was a mimic, right? I copied Robert Peterson. I copied Alberto Lopez from Lowrider. So I would just copy people. So when I started working with companies like General Motors or Chrysler or Pepsi, I would go into these meetings non-educated. I barely graduated high school. Went to 2 semesters of East L.A. college, and they tried to steal my truck, and that was the last time I went to college. Like, that was it, And just kind of really focusing, and education is education, right? It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
So I educated myself about my passions, and it paid off for me in a different way, right?
Yeah.
I'm still not educated to go and I spoke at USC last year, and I felt nervous just being there.
Yeah.
Like, it's education. The normal forms of education make me feel really stupid.
Right.
I don't know why, but it
Right.
does. It makes me feel really insecure. I got picked on by the teachers when I was younger, call me stupid or this or that. So it's like there's this scar in there for like traditional education. And I'm ADD, HDD, all that stuff, right? OCD. I can't sit on a hard chair for like 5 hours. I'm sorry.
Right.
Like
It's not for
it just
everyone,
drives
you
me
know?
nuts.
There are different ways to educate yourself about the world, and academia is one way, but so is being a street ambassador for something that you are passionate about.
Well, street smarts is intuition and common sense.
Right.
They don't teach you that at Harvard, MIT, or
Some of the biggest dumbasses I've ever met in my life graduated from Harvard.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. So if you could get educated on top of your street smarts, you could be smarter than everybody.
Exactly.
Right, and that's kind of what I took. What was like my nail in my coffin, and made that my silver bullet.
Yeah.
Right, and just going around and wanting to share that with people.
Yeah.
To change that mindset.
Yeah,
That negative mindset.
And I want to go back to, you said something so beautiful and so powerful when we first sat down. You said, I lost my sight, but not my vision.
Yeah.
Right. And that is, I think there's a CEO of a lumber company on the East Coast who got a very serious disease and lost his entire voice. CEO of a $1 billion company, and he had the same response you did. He learned that to be a CEO, I don't need to speak.
Yeah.
I need to listen.
Yeah.
Right. And like these life lessons are like, it's something you would read in a book, but what you have done is like compensate for those losses with this success and being able to see things other people do not see.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what an entrepreneur is.
I equate that to like kind of like Navy SEAL training, right?
Right.
We're trained in a certain way to go out there and almost, technically like die and recover and do all of those things, just like a Navy SEAL. So you're able to come back and keep on going, right? Not everybody could do it. Not everybody could pass SEAL training. So if you look at a lot of very successful business people, they have very traumatic stories. They have a lot of just different issues, a lot of narcissism, a lot of just, abuse, mental, physical, spiritual, everything abuse. And those are the things that, people sit at home all the time and just have massive anxiety or feel bad for themselves and stuff that they could actually do something with it.
Yeah.
So I equate it to like, we're all like nuclear reactors and you got all that nuclear energy going. You could convert it and use it, to kind of light up the world, or you could let it just burn you up inside. Right.
How do you, like for anyone who's listening to this interview, what advice, it sounds to me like you have, you're enlightened, right? Like you
absolutely.
knew you had to make, the choice to find your purpose. What advice do you have for people out there struggling with, some kind of disability? Like what is your advice to them to keep going?
Well, it comes back to like, if you look at, Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, all these athletes that are stars, right?
Yeah.
They took one thing to make them successful. So if you figure out what your true gift is and you go and put 50, 60,000 hours of practice in your true gift, you'd be the best in the world.
Yeah.
The problem is most people want to try to work on what they're not good at.
Yeah.
So I tell them to focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses.
Right.
Everybody wants to be good at what they're not good at. But if you could be the best in the world at what you're good at, your God-given talent, that's all you need.
Yeah.
All you need is that one thing.
Exactly.
So I think that a lot of times people are unfocused or distracted by what they're not good at. Focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
Don't focus on your disability. Focus on your extraordinary abilities that are coming from that, how to overcome that.
Right.
Because that resilience, but not only that mindset, will keep you hungry and you're going to continue to strive. And when it's hard and everybody's talented and everything else, all you have is your grit. that who could go out there and do it longer, who could, last, who could get knocked down and get back up. That's really the key.
Yeah.
Because everybody else, they go, it starts getting a little tough and they quit.
Yeah.
They just give up, or they don't start at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Because of fear.
Well, anxiety
right?
and fear kills more dreams than cancer or
how do
anything
you-
else,
Exactly. And how do you, for a lot of entrepreneurs, that fear is paralyzing,
Yeah.
right? The fear of failure, the fear of,
That's why most people don't become entrepreneurs.
right? Because it's scary,
Yeah.
right? How do you get past that fear? Because people focus on it,
So,
right?
so my advice to that person would be to focus on what you're really afraid of.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I didn't fly for like 3 years. This was back,
On an airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not going to fly. Like, you know what? They could come meet me, And I was so deadly afraid of flying.
Really?
Right. Because I was having anxiety.
Yeah.
So when you're in a plane and they're going to close the door and you're having a panic attack, it's not a good feeling.
No, I
right?
would think
you're
not.
like, don't breathe my air. Don't breathe that's my air. You know what I mean? Like, where's my parachute at? I don't need the oxygen. I need a parachute, right? But that's just the reality of it. But
Yeah.
if you look at it, I wasn't afraid of flying. I was afraid of dying, right? But more importantly, I was afraid of not being in control.
It's the control
It's
thing.
a control thing.
Yeah.
So majority of the time it's a control thing,
Yeah.
but the control thing comes from some time of traumatic event,
Yeah.
right? And then it'll lock it in to certain ages and stuff like that. So when you actually dissect down what you're feeling and why, it could actually take away a lot of the anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you're connecting your feelings with your behavior and your past.
Right.
People don't want to connect.
Yeah.
Once you connect those three, life is easy.
Yeah.
It's simple. Life is just simple because you're like, this happened to me. That's why I do this. And that's why I think about doing this. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's usually running, right? Because something transpired predominantly at a young age, which at the young age you want to retreat. You're hiding all of those things because you know any different, right? So that mechanism. So I got it down to where I could like coach people, look at the way they act and what they're doing and how they're reacting, and I could tell them what age their trauma was
That's amazing.
by the way they're reacting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because there's different ages do different things, right?
Yeah.
If they're throwing things a lot and stuff like that, they usually got traumatized between 2 and 4 because that's when you're throwing things.
Right.
So you could dissect that down based on whatever they're doing.
That's insane.
Yeah. But that's the gift, right?
Right.
I'm able to talk to people and understand kind of their traumas and stuff like that in their life. And it's been amazing. It's I feel it's a big responsibility because I'm out there constantly trying to help people and absorbing all of the negativity and the energy and all that stuff. But I feel like that's what God put me here to do. So
The story is really inspiring, and also that whole idea, with entrepreneurship and the fear of failure and the fear of rejection, and all of those fears are, like that is what causes a lot of people and startup founders to fail.
Yeah.
Because they focus on the fear of failure instead of the end game.
But they're not even focusing on the fear of failure. They're focusing on the image of failure.
Right.
Right. They're thinking about what people will think about
Yeah.
them.
What people will think.
Yeah. So it's like if anybody that went through trauma, they're not thinking about that other people went through the same trauma and there's a connection, stuff like that. They think about how people are going to perceive them. So if they fail, how are people going to perceive them? Once you get over the perception of what that might feel like and you just fail and you learn, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And everyone's failing. And once you're okay with failing, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just, it's that fear that's created. But again, it's working through it. I tell people that I coach, get your mind right. Right. So I have these things where I call them like mental push-ups. Because if you want to go get fit, you go to the gym or you eat, you do this. There's no one that's really exercising your mind. Your mind's a muscle. So how do you go and exercise your mind to be the best entrepreneur that you can be?
How do you do that?
So a lot of it is visualization and really working on your trauma. So identifying your behavior. So if you're a person that's conflict adverse, then you got to work on knowing that when things get confrontational, you're going to hide.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly work on that, right? By doing, sometimes a lot of it is just talking to yourself in the mirror. So I believe in visualization. So I've met everybody in life. And when I meet them, I know what to say because I said it a million times, right? And that's really what it comes down to.
How does visualization work? Like if you're, so you talk to yourself in the mirror, how does that actually, how can really anyone, not just an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
use that tool?
Well, there's body languages, right? So if you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I'm stupid. And if you feel a certain way and you're like droop down, that's one of the words that's hurting you.
Yeah.
I'm smart. You don't believe it. You could tell. So you look at yourself and you look at your body language, and then you have other people work with you. And it's like, hey, you're dumb, you're lazy, whatever. And I'm not saying to belittle people, but I'm saying say words that could trigger them, right? I mean, I've been married 20 years, right? I know every trigger from my wife, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, psh, psh,
Yep.
like,
Same.
take that, But she knows all the triggers for me too, right?
It's two-way street.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those triggers exist because there's a real reason they exist. So if you do the visualization and you talk, and you'll realize, wow, whenever anyone so my trigger was I'm dumb, because I felt dumb my whole life.
Yeah.
So if somebody says you're dumb or you're stupid, I would go nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Just go nuts.
Yeah.
So those were my triggers. So I had to work on myself. So I went in the mirror. I'm like, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb. Hey, my wife, come here. Hey, my buddy, come here. Tell me I'm dumb. Oh, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb. I did it so much until it never bothered me again.
Yeah.
And that's just the bottom line.
But also, you're obviously not dumb.
Well, I mean, but I'm dumb in a lot of ways. I mean, I remember, I have a daughter and we're watching The Rain Man when she was really little, and she goes, Dad, that's like you. And I'm like, really? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
really? But that's the reality of it. We're all genius in certain areas and we're dumb in other areas. You just got to accept it. Like this whole notion of perfection, just like a business, it's like, be messy. Start messy and then clean it up as it goes. That's how Dub was. That's how TIS. I did music before. So I produced an artist named El Presidente with a couple partners. So I had Tough Guy Records, Tough Guy Productions, and we signed him to BMG when I was 21. So I got a $1.5 million deal, ended up getting sued by BMG, lost all my money, cried for one day. Like that was 21, 22 years old, right? So I learned the hard way. And again, people don't need to learn the hard way. They can learn from people's experiences. But the reality of it is, like, say if there's a, pot that's hot, like, it's on the stove and it's hot. No one knows what hot means until they get burned, right? So people got to get burned to understand what hot means, right? You have to understand. Just because it glitters doesn't mean it's gold. There's a lot of weird stuff, people trying to take advantage of people right now. And it sucks. You see it all the time, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, you just have to keep that guard up, but you got to really go after what you want. Successful people go after what they want. Not successful people try to avoid what they don't want.
Yeah.
That's to me, it's black and white.
Yeah.
You have two doors there. What door are you going to pick?
Yeah.
You're going to hide or you're going to go?
Do you think, since you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and startups and you're a mentor, like emotionally as well, is there a certain type of person who is more likely to succeed, or can anyone be successful?
Well, when you get to a certain level, right? So there's just like a pinnacle, right, of the iceberg. When you start getting to that upper echelon, all that work that's under the water that nobody sees. But when you start climbing to that peak, it's like Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So only the people that train hard and do all that stuff could get there. But you have to make a decision once you get to a certain place. Are you going to do it for the money or are you going to do it for the people?
Yeah.
If you do it for the people, you will not make the money. Mm-hmm. If you do it for the money, you'll make a lot of money, but you'll be lonely and you're a narcissist, right? And that's the way the business works.
Yeah.
I mean, I coach billionaires every day, and you know what? The more money they have, the more narcissistic they are. Yeah. But a lot of it is based on trauma. Yeah. It's all in that's one of those things I'm trying to just really put out there. It's all based on trauma and how you react to it. And therapy is great if you actually use it, right? Therapy doesn't change the way you feel. It changes the way you feel about the way you feel. So if people went into therapy with that mindset, I don't need to change the way I feel. I need to change the way I feel about the way I feel. Yeah. They're free. Yeah. So that was something that changed my life. Like over the last 15 years, I feel so free because of that mindset shift. So to me, anyone can change their mindset. Anyone. And it's also about the people around you. Yeah. People around you either make you bitter or better. Yeah. So be around people that make you better. Yeah. Right? Period.
Absolutely.
And somebody that makes you better today will make you bitter tomorrow, right? You got to be able to move. Everything's temporary. We live in a temporary society.
Yeah.
You throw your phone away now. You throw your TV away. You know what I mean?
Everything.
You don't fix anything anymore.
No.
We live in a throwaway society. Now in dating, they're just on Tinder and stuff.
I know.
They throw their
Doesn't
dates
it
away.
feel kind of cheap and,
I mean, it feels cheap if you're trying to hold on to the old tradition. If you embrace the change, it feels exciting.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just the bottom line. You could choose to go down fighting and kicking, or you could say, hey, I'm going to roll. I equate it to kind of like catching a wave surfing. You got to work hard to get to that area.
Yeah.
But when you get it, you ride that wave.
Yeah.
You ride that wave. And anxiety, fear, panic attacks, it's kind of like the rip current inside the ocean. When you're actually being tumbled around and all that stuff, you're in the water. If you listen to what you're supposed to do when you're in a riptide, you're supposed to relax, breathe, and let the water take you up, not fight it. The more you fight it, the more violent it gets.
Yeah.
That's what anxiety does.
Yeah.
So if you acknowledge it, it exists, but you don't fight it, it goes away.
But okay, so you work with all these corporate executives,
Yes.
which I think is just super fascinating. But, like if you're working with a narcissistic personality, do they even admit, that there's some kind of shortcoming or how do you, because a lot of CEOs are in fact narcissistic.
Yeah.
That's how they got there.
Well, you just have to frame it in something that they can
Relate to.
relate to, right?
Yeah.
So when we first started pitching, say Dub Magazine to do the stuff with Chrysler and stuff like that with Dita Zetcher, which is the president of Mercedes now. At the time, we're working with him to launch the Chrysler 300. And I'm in these meetings he's a German guy. There's all these older people from Detroit and stuff like that. I'm like, we need to do something with Snoop Dogg, and they're like, no way,
Right.
No way, and I'm like, well, what if we did something with James Dean or Jimi Hendrix or the Rolling Stones or Elvis Presley or Marilyn Monroe? They're like, oh, that would be good. Well, Marilyn Monroe, Snoop Dogg is like the Marilyn Monroe for their next generation. And they're like, oh, I never understood that. So I couldn't get them emotionally connected to what we wanted to do because it would never happen. But I could get them emotionally connected to the symbols of what we wanted to do. So then they go, oh, if Marilyn Monroe was promoting the car, that would be awesome. Or Elvis Presley. So they would look at that. They get excited. I go, that's how your grandkids feel about Snoop.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
Right.
So I had to really frame it up differently.
Yeah.
To where in the beginning, I was over there just trying to convince them. It doesn't work.
No, you gotta put it in their language.
Yeah. So when I work with, whether it's, 10-year-old kid or I'm working with a billionaire, right, of a major Fortune 50 company, you got to frame it up to where they actually will understand it.
Yeah.
And you can't beat it in.
Yeah.
The minute I try to beat a message in, they're closed off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all are. We're human. Yeah.
So you got to go in there and you have to work on the different ways to talk to people. And that's a management skill too.
Yeah.
You can't manage everyone the same. Everyone's going to react differently. So when I look at, I'm like, oh, this person's risk adverse. This person's confrontational. This person's non-confrontational. I adjust kind of my theory and kind of coaching and managing them based on trauma, based on the way they handle things and defense mechanisms, right? Because if they have trauma, they usually have a defense mechanism, right? I mean, I tell my wife that all the time. You do this because of this. No, I don't. No, she's not willing to accept it. But once she actually accepts it, then she could see her defense mechanism. Yeah. Because when we have defense mechanisms, we don't even notice we do that.
That is so true.
Right? So when we're doing it on automatic pilot, we're not registering in our brain that we're doing it. So once you register in your brain that you're doing it, then you could stop it.
Right.
Until you register, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I'm getting people to register things, connect the traumas to each other. And so far it worked for a lot of people and it saved my life, Yeah. So, I mean, and for me, I just want people to achieve. It's like an athlete, Look at Simone Biles, the Olympic, best gymnast in the world. She had a mental breakdown.
Yep.
Right?
She's got the twisties.
But nobody was giving her mental coaching.
Right.
They were all giving her gymnastics coaching. So I think that's something that needs to happen for everyone. They need to look at going to the gym or going and getting a trainer or doing this fitness regimen. If they were to put that much time into building their mental strength, whoa, the world would be a different place.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So when you're working with, CEO level or C-level people, what is the first start? What is the starting point?
Usually it's asking me about business or market, right? So it's trends and stuff like that, and kind of what they think I should do, right? Advice. And then as I start getting more into more understanding them, then I could tell them kind of why they're feeling a certain way and maybe how they can deal with that differently.
Yeah.
So it's like, if something's triggering them, they could react differently. But a lot of it, like a lot of times it's like common sense, just straight common sense.
Yeah.
That a lot of times when you're so busy, you're stuck in kind of they say that like you're in the woods, you're in the trees, and you can't see past the trees.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's getting people to kind of look back. So the way I equate it is like when you're playing a video game, you're like, looking at what they're saying, and then you're looking back, you could see the gun if you're in a first person shooter,
Perspective,
or
yeah.
you could put it back to where you could see the whole body. When I feel like I'm lost in the trees, I try to go back, not only to see my whole body, but to see it from above, like 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
And then I could figure out where to go from there when everyone's in the trees, right? So part of that is a strategy. So when I'm working, like we did shows and events and stuff like that,
Yep.
I raced the Baja 1000 off-road race and stuff like that. And there was no communication up there, but they had sat phones and they had radio. So you have limited communication. But there's this guy that sat on the hill and he has a big antenna and they call him the weatherman. He could dispatch signals to anyone in the valley in Mexico where there's no cell because of radio, but it's done through repeating. Mm-hmm. So I became the weatherman in the business. So I'm the weatherman for these people. When they can't communicate, I'm trying to communicate for them.
Right.
And it's that simple.
Yeah.
And that just came out because I see a breakdown in communication pretty much everywhere I go. So I want to be like that conduit, right? If I'm working with a corporate company and say a celebrity, I want to be the glue that holds that deal together.
Right.
Because I understand both sides of it, which is an art form, right?
It absolutely
Dealing with the street
is.
guy and dealing with the corporate guy, two totally different beasts.
Yeah.
But I understand both of them. So I could sit there in the middle and change, whether it's like the way I speak, the delivery, I know when to be harsh, when not to, like all of those things, because I learned that.
Right.
That's an art form.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what people really need to understand. You got to, and one of the things that I did when I was younger was I got people around that needed me. I wanted to feel important. Now I only work with people that I need.
Yeah.
Right. Take me to the next level.
That is wisdom that comes with experience,
Yeah.
I think, to be
Yeah.
able to say that. Because
Yeah.
that's like,
Well, you got to put the ego aside, right?
You have to.
For me, if I'm the smartest guy in the room's pretty dumb.
Right.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
know. I feel the same way.
Let's get some really smart people in here and put myself out there. But going back to like the early days of meeting with Chrysler and stuff, all these companies use acronyms to describe all their market, this, that, launches, this and that. And I didn't know anything about that. So what I did was I listened to the people at Chrysler. And then in the afternoon, I went to GM and I just used the same terminology. And they're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. I faked it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was
Sometimes
talking
you
about.
gotta do that,
I would just listen to what they were saying at Chrysler and reiterate it at GM and then go back and then same thing. So later on in my life, I watched this TV show and it was like a memory genius. And the memory genius had playing, I think it was like 8 master chess players. And he ended up beating like out of the 7, I think 8 of them, or out of the 8, 7 of them. And they're like, how did you do that? And he said, I wasn't playing them. I was playing him against him. So he knew who the best ones were.
Oh,
He would
wow.
mimic their move on the other ones and beat them.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I've done in my life. That's how I was able to work with celebrities and all of these big companies, because all I'm doing is putting them against each other and moving the pieces
Right.
and remembering what move they made so I can make the same move over here.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if you break down life into a very simple way, life is pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, but that takes a lot of introspection, I think, to get to that point, right? Especially
A lot of training.
a lot
right?
of training, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right.
You just got to be conscious of the situation and you have to adapt to it
Right.
as it's moving. And if you're adapting as it's moving, when it becomes a thing, you're going to be right there ready to take
Yeah.
advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're moving and adapting after, it takes you X amount of time to adapt. So for me, I'm constantly adapting and seeing things happening. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing it specifically to make that move. I'm doing it to better myself,
Right.
make myself more patient, make myself smarter, make myself whatever it is, right? More aggressive if I need to be. So it's really looking at that. And in war, retreat is a form of strategy. Nobody wants to go backwards. I love going backwards. You talk to anybody in the companies, I cut budgets, I do this, I do that. And people are like, what are you doing? You never know what's going to happen, but we're poised.
Right.
And then when we need to attack, we attack. But when we attack, nobody sees us because they always see us pulling back, right?
Right.
So it's really strategic about how to go and
Is
when
this
to go.
like what you're talking about right now? So D-Ray, you know D-Ray, he is part of the busy
Yeah.
C team.
Yeah, great guy. Did a lot with us at Monster Energy. So
Yeah, he said you have stories, but also one of the when I talked to him this morning, he was talking about Myles is a branding ninja.
Thank you.
And so and
That's
you
because
are,
I'm Japanese, right? They
right.
call me the
No,
ninja.
no, like it's no.
I'm just joking.
So what the
I'm more like a sumo.
okay,
yeah.
what kind of
Like a baby sumo. I'm the baby
a
sumo.
branding sumo.
Yeah, I'm the branding baby sumo, right? BBS.
But do you use the technique you're talking about right now? Like that's almost the chess game of watching all these other, what people are doing. Is that what made you so successful at branding? And you were an early adopter of the whole influencer model. Is that all a part of this tactic that you're talking about?
I mean, all it is, honestly, for us was just how do we raise the cool factor?
Yeah.
So like when we first started working with Monster, we were with Pepsi, we were with Coca-Cola, then we went to Pepsi, did the second largest sweepstakes in Pepsi history. Our dub logo was on 1.5 billion bottles of Pepsi, gave away 24 cars and, or 48 cars in 2 years. Like did a lot of really, really cool stuff with them. But we felt that the Monster Energy brand was more popular.
Yeah.
It was more cutting edge, right? People would die for a Monster t-shirt, hat. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, they were just like all over it. And so we're like, we need that rub. So it's like you give them the rub. And the way I equate it is like Coca-Cola and these guys know, they're the biggest company in the world, right? Or one of them. They'll go to an event and take it over and they own that event, right? They're not sharing the table with other people.
Right.
So I equate it almost like going back to middle school. If you're sitting at the table with all the cool kids, you're cool. If you're sitting by yourself, you're not really as cool as you think you are, right? So we want to sit at the table with all the cool brands. And that's all it is. So if Snoop had the cool brand, Monster had the cool brand, and we were aligned at the table with both of them,
it's a good place.
we were pretty cool,
Yeah.
right? That's how I've done every brand and really started from scratch on that just to raise the cool factor. Because the cool factor is unmeasurable, but the cool factor is what makes people want it, right? Just like iPhone. When the iPhone first came out, Steve Jobs, he raised the cool factor on it. Tesla raised the cool factor on the car. People didn't even care about the phone or the car. They just wanted it because people would go, oh, you have the new iPhone.
Right.
You have the new car. They raised the cool factor on it, right? Once you raise the cool factor, people want it. So when you raise the cool factor, it's everything that nobody needs that people want.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to be successful.
But what if you're, in an early startup mode and you want to have that cool factor, but you can't really afford, a table. Like, how do you?
I mean, look at all the brands and stuff that are owned by owners.
Yeah.
Look at Jackson, the necklace company, right? I mean, I was just there last week and they're killing it.
Yeah.
Influencers, everything. They started with nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So that tells me with media, YouTube, all that other stuff, influencers, everything else, there's more opportunity than ever.
Yeah.
Social commerce is it, right? I mean, everyone, you could sell directly on your social media account to anybody and make money. You could go monetize YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, if people really put the time and effort into it to curate it, they're going to do a great job. Yeah. And if you look back, I mean, Kim Kardashian shot the first Keeping Up with the Kardashians, even before it was named that, at the Dub Show, right? And I'm sure the production was terrible compared to what they do now, but they started. And that's really it. Like, look at this podcast. It exists. 10 years from now, this is going to be the, even bigger medium, right? 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 2 months from now.
Right.
Right. So again, it's just really pushing these mediums and then trying to figure out how to make money doing it.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're passionate about it, you're willing to go longer without making money. But as it progresses, there's going to be these pockets to make actual cash.
Yeah.
And a lot of these celebrities are looking for investments.
Right.
They're all looking for it.
And just listening to you share your stories and really insightful advice, like you believe in what you do.
Well, I mean, I believe because it worked for me,
Yeah.
and I want to get it to work for other people.
Yeah.
Right. That's just it. So if I could, the whole goal, like even with my kids, I tell them, if I could accelerate your life by 20 years, and you know everything that I know now, at 25, you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah.
You'll be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because most people don't learn until later. I tell people, I had my midlife crisis at 30. So hopefully I don't die when I'm 60
Yeah, like
because
that's
it's right
kinda
around the
early,
corner.
man.
Yeah. But yeah, I had my midlife crisis at 35, 30. So, and I had my first massive mental breakdown when I was 24. Like
Jeez.
massive. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Early bloomer.
Early bloomer. But again, that God blessed me with that, right?
Yeah.
So it gave me the skills to overcome it. And that's why I feel like I'm supposed to teach it.
Yeah.
Different level.
Are you working on a book?
I mean, I have a great book story. I signed a $250,000 advance with Random House and Crown Books and all that stuff. And then worked on it, got a writer, this and that, paid all these people, blah, blah, blah. And then economy crashed. They dropped my book. And then I had to pay back Random House.
Oh, no.
So my book, I lost $150,000
Oh, that's
trying
a
to put a
terrible
book
deal.
to help people.
That's
right?
terrible book deal.
Right. So that's my experience. So after that, I was like, no more books.
No, you should do a book, but like self-published.
No. Yeah. Now it's so much easier.
Yeah.
I mean, this was back in the day, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I had the best team on the book, everything, awesome agent. Timing was just off and it didn't work. But also too, I never read a book.
Oh, yeah.
So how the hell can I write a book if I've never read one, right? So I was really insecure. So I let pretty much the writer and the agent control everything. The book sucked, right?
Has to come from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't even my words, all you know what I mean? So it was a tough one. So I was like fighting that. I could have put it out. I could still put it out. But cost me $150,000 to do
not
a book.
publish?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to not publish the book.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You're kind of upside down on that deal.
Yeah, so hopefully one day I'll be able to, if you're listening, buy my book, help me recover some cash, if I do one. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, these types of mediums are more powerful.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I'm a believer in one-on-one, right? If, like people reach out to me and stuff like that, I take the time.
Yeah.
I'm on the road, I take the time. I get so many people pitching new business ideas to me and stuff, and I helped a lot of people go from concept to reality and stuff like that. That's what I love.
Yeah.
I'm good at it, and it feels good, right?
So if somebody is listening, and we certainly hope that they are,
Yeah.
and wants to learn more about your approach and your platform and where
They could just DM me on any social, right?
Okay.
Myles Kovacs on Instagram.
and you're
Facebook.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could just DM me and stuff, and I'll take the message and try to figure out exactly what I can do to help them. And, again, like for me, I'm motivated on really making a difference in people's lives. And, but again, don't come to me unless you're ready,
Yeah.
right? And that's the bottom line.
And
I
it's
tell
tough
people.
love.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's
I tell people how it is, right? And not only that, I could pick apart trauma. So I could talk to somebody and tell them potentially what happened to them at what age and everything. So, yeah. It's scary. Some people don't want to be around that.
It's scary, but it is, like having interviewed a lot of companies and a lot of extraordinarily successful companies that have later catastrophically failed.
Yeah.
A lot of it starts right at the beginning with the leadership and the founders. So, everybody reach out to Myles. And I cannot thank you enough for joining us today on the Purple Couch in Santa Monica.
The purple couch in the badass studio.
Yeah, with the badass studio manager. And thank you.
What's the studio called?
This is Encapsulate.
Encapsulate Studio. Beautiful studio
It's
down here.
beautiful.
Come check it out.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Myles.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.